ICE is back doing their job, effective today.
The border is closed, and many migrants have been warned.
You feel it. You have the panic attacks. You can't sleep.
Today, we're exploring the potential legal roadblocks in the president's plan.
An executive order does not have the power to override the Constitution.
I personally feel he's on a good track.
As California leaders prepare for a fight.
I have one message for President Trump. I'll see you in court.
This is CBS News Bay Area with Elizabeth Cook.
I'm Ann Makovic, and the question today is, should children born here in the U.S. be granted citizenship no matter where their parents are from? It's been a constitutional right for more than a century under the 14th Amendment, but now President Trump is trying to put an end to it. Today, we are digging into his executive orders to ask what it would take to make that official. President Trump spending his first full day in office this afternoon. He is tackling artificial intelligence a day after signing dozens of executive orders and pardoning more than 1,500 defendants tied to the January 6th attacks. His actions already facing some pushback from both sides of the aisle. Natalie Brand is at the White House with details.
And President Trump met with Republican leaders in the Oval Office today, House Speaker Mike Johnson, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, to talk about their legislative priorities in Congress. But as for the flurry of executive orders that the president signed over the past 24 hours, some of them already facing pushback and legal challenges from states including California.
President Trump is banking on GOP congressional leaders to help move his agenda in Congress, inviting them to the White House during his first full day in office. On Tuesday, the president also announced a plan to invest billions of dollars in the private sector to build a supercomputer that will help develop the next generation of artificial intelligence. The new venture called Stargate will start with a data center project in Texas.
A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States, creating over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately.
Already, some of President Trump's new executive actions signed within hours of taking his oath are facing legal challenges. More than 18 states have joined a lawsuit over the order seeking to overturn birthright citizenship. The attorneys general saying that's in clear violation of the Constitution's 14th Amendment.
The question is, are the laws of our nation going to mean anything, or can they be taken away by a stroke of a pen?
With a crackdown on illegal immigration a top priority for the new White House, Reverend Marianne Edgar Buddy had this message during this morning's national prayer service attended by the First Family.
I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away.
As defendants convicted in the January 6th Capitol attack are set to be released after Trump's sweeping pardons, even some Republican lawmakers say they don't agree.
I'm about to file 2 bills that will increase the penalties up to and including the death penalty for the murder of a police officer, and increasing the penalties and creating federal crimes for assaulting a police officer. That should give you everything you need to know about my position.
Trump also directed the Attorney General to seek dismissal of any January 6th criminal cases still pending.
Now back to the immigration-related actions taken so far. New today, the Trump administration revoked a Biden-era memo that prohibited ICE agents from making arrests at sensitive locations such as schools, shelters, churches, or health care settings. In a statement, the Department of Homeland Security says it trusts agents to, quote, use common sense. At the White House, Natalie Brand, back to you.
Well, President Trump has confirmed that he will be traveling to Los Angeles this week to survey wildfire damage. She's going to be first checking out some storm damage in North Carolina on Friday and then flying to L.A. Well, no surprise here, California is one of the states that filed the lawsuit challenging President Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship. That amendment gives a constitutional right of citizenship to all children born in the U.S. California Attorney General Rob Bonta called the move by the president unconstitutional.
The president has overstepped his authority by a mile, and we will hold him accountable. I have one message for President Trump. I'll see you in court.
Overturning this 127-year precedent is contrary to our American values and a ruthless attack on newborns and future generations of Americans.
The 18 states, along with San Francisco and D.C., are also seeking a preliminary order blocking the policy before the Trump administration can implement it. The ACLU also taking steps to challenge some of President Trump's executive orders. They gathered at the state capitol to call on lawmakers to protect vulnerable communities. The ACLU says they're concerned for immigrants as they could face deportations. There were recently reports of ICE raids happening in the Central Valley, and advocates say they're going to do everything they can to protect immigrants.
California will remain a hopeful and welcoming place for immigrants and refugees. We are putting our money where our mouth is to provide the legal services and fight back with litigation.
The ACLU and other immigrant rights groups have also filed a lawsuit against Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship. They argue the order would harm newborns by denying them citizenship, basic rights, and opportunities. President Trump started his term by signing a series of executive orders, but how much power do they really have? Coming up, we're going to ask a law professor what it would take to make those changes. President Trump's executive orders impacting immigration are sparking concern and fear in areas like Santa Clara County, which is 25% Hispanic. Since 2011, the county's sanctuary policy has banned using local resources or staff to cooperate with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. Back in October of 2023, Santa Clara County officials confirmed that a group of migrants was taken from El Paso, Texas, and dropped off by bus in San Jose's Guadalupe, Washington neighborhood. The family spent 3 days on the streets until the county's Immigrant Relations Office connected them with resources. Well, fast forward to the new Trump administration and the threat of federal immigration action now causing more fear in San Jose. Immigrants and their supporters are pushing back. They gathered on Inauguration Day for a show of solidarity. One of the people speaking out, community organizer Maria Chavez. She is a mother of 4 who could be deported and separated from her U.S.-born children. Maria said the worst part of what's happening is the effect on her children, including her 12-year-old son.
My son said that he would hide me and would stay at home with me and have my older sister, who's 18 years old, goes to San Jose State, bring them food.
Community groups say they will continue to work with immigrants who qualify to help them get legal status. Starting at 5 o'clock, faith leaders and community leaders in Santa Clara County are holding a community prayer vigil to stand with immigrant families. That is at McKentry Plaza outside the county building on Heading Street. Well, joining me now is Matt Kohls. He is a law professor at UC Law San Francisco and former deputy national legal director at the ACLU. Thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure to be with you.
Can we start with just the basics? What is birthright citizenship?
Birthright citizenship is a sentence in the 14th Amendment, which was passed at the end of the Civil War. And it says that all persons born in the United States are citizens of the United States. It has an exception. It says it's not true for people who are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States or of the states. And the courts have been very clear that not subject to the jurisdiction means that they don't have to obey U.S. law. So somebody with born to somebody with diplomatic immunity isn't qualify as a citizen if born here. And if there were an invading army that had taken over part of the United States, you know, if Canada crossed the Niagara Falls and took over Buffalo, New York, and held on to it, if you committed a traffic infraction in Buffalo, you'd be subject to Canadian law because Canada would be in control. Those are the 2 exceptions. Otherwise, if you're born in the United States, you're a United States citizen. The 14th Amendment is pretty simple and pretty straightforward about that.
Okay, so what does that mean for children who were born here to migrants who are maybe here illegally?
They're citizens because...
It's that simple, because you had a lot of words on the rest of it. And so for people that are in that situation, it's that simple. They are constitutional citizens.
That's right. And actually, there's a federal statute passed by Congress that says the same thing.
Okay, so has this been challenged in court before?
Yes, about 120 years ago. And the Supreme Court said at that time the only exceptions were children of diplomats and invading armies. That's it.
Okay, okay. So what does this executive order do at this point if the Constitution's saying one thing, the executive order is saying another thing?
So the executive order says basically that federal agencies can't issue documentation that reflects citizenship. We don't have citizenship cards in the United States, but there are passports and there are other kinds of documents that do reflect citizenship. So the president's order purports to say to all federal agencies, let's take passports for a second, you can't issue a passport to somebody unless they can prove citizenship, can prove that one of their parents was either a United States citizen or a lawful permanent resident. But because the language of the 14th Amendment is so clear and the Supreme Court's decision about what it means is so old and well established, I think it's very, very likely that this will immediately be enjoined by the lower courts.
Okay, so say it did go through as an executive order. Is there any way that citizenship could be revoked from people that were born here?
I don't think so, no. Their citizenship is a matter of constitutional right.
And so people who are getting ready to have children here, maybe I'm here illegally and getting ready to have a child, what for them?
I don't think it makes any difference. The way the order is written, by the way, it's only perspective. So it doesn't look back to people in the past. It just looks at the future and says, 30 days from now, this is going to be our interpretation of birthright citizenship. But the president of the United States, his job is to execute the laws. It's not to make them. This law has been made by Congress and it's been made by the Constitution itself, and he can't undo that.
So what if Congress, under President Trump, that's controlled by the GOP at this point, what if they did want to change the Constitution? How feasible would that even be?
Well, you have to get 2/3 of each house to approve the change, and it then has to be approved by 3/4 of the states. That's what it would take.
Okay. Anything else in some of the president's executive orders that we should be thinking about right now?
Oh, that's a big question. You know, at the very minimum, I think people should pay attention in the immigration context to the use of the military on the borders. In general, Congress has made it very clear over the years that we're not to use the military on domestic disputes, but only in hostilities with foreign countries. So I think there's some doubt about his deployment of the military. I also think that his executive order on gender identity may well run up against both federal statutes and the Constitution. I mean, the thing that people need to be clear about here that I think sometimes Americans lose sight of is that basic point I was making a little while ago. It's the Constitution sets the basic parameters of what our law can be, what you can't do and what you can do. Congress decides what we're going to do, what our law is going to be. It's the president's job to carry out the Constitution and the laws enacted by Congress. It is not the president's job to decide that he doesn't like them and therefore he's going to make a new law. That's just not his job.
I've heard a lot of people say if there's one thing we can rally around, you know, you'd think it's the Constitution. So we'll continue to follow this really insightful discussion there. I appreciate it, Professor Matt Kohls. We'll be right back.
Pleasure to be with you.
Thanks for watching. You can always get all the latest headlines and weather over on KPIX Plus. And remember to like and click the button on the bottom left of your screen to subscribe for the biggest Bay Area news.